This is your Daily 5 for Wednesday, June 10th, 2026. You have likely, because it will be virtually impossible not to have heard, read, or seen something about the announcements from Apple's WWDC conference, which was, the keynote was on Monday morning. And if you don't know, if you have somehow, and I actually kind of envy you, if you've been able to avoid all this or don't know what WWDC is, it is Apple's developer conference where they basically announce a lot of initiatives around the actual software that powers all the devices and different hardware that they make. And it is, as the title suggests, aimed at developers, but it's also something where they typically use the keynote. There's a couple of sessions that usually are what people who are not developers look to see what Apple is promising they'll do in the next year or so and beyond in many cases. And as you might expect, a lot of it this year is around different AI initiatives, specifically many of them tied into Apple's assistant titled Siri. And, you know, you can read lots of articles, podcasts, all the rest about the dissection of all these features, how useful anybody thinks they are, all that stuff. For myself, the thing that I'm going to wait for, and let's see if it actually happens, is how consistent and reliable any of these features are. And do they add something to the base Siri experience? Because look, in terms of all of this AI stuff, if you're willing to spend enough, you can do amazing things. Most people are not going to have the budgets to spend at the upper limits of what many of these models are going to require. So we can throw all the advanced, really top-end stuff just right out. You have to look at what the base level stuff is. And especially in Apple's case, it's even more base level because Siri remains one of the worst assistants that you can use for even basic tasks. And I'm going to tell you right now, because I do have one of their lower end iCloud things just for storage, for backing up certain things. This is a basically third tier storage device. And so that my wife can have her photos backed up. It's really the only thing we use it for. And I do back some of my stuff up off my iPad, but it's not one of the higher tier ones. I think it might be the lowest or the second lowest one. And I have Apple Care on some of the products that I really care about because if they break, I'd like to get them back as fast as possible and actually fixed. But outside of that, I don't have any of the upper stuff that they've got, right? So here's my test for whether any of this stuff is any good. And this is far from an advanced query to any type of system. One of the biggest things, I shouldn't say biggest things. One of the things that most annoys me, that's the right way to say it, about Siri today is we don't use it for very advanced things. My wife uses it almost not at all. I use it mostly for playing music, podcasts, setting timers, the basic stuff. And it cannot figure out how to play the album version of a song. And what I mean is, if you ask it for song, artist, or song from album, if the version it wants to play is, let's say, the live version or a radio edit of it, trying to get it not to play that is a system of hoop jumping that nobody should ever have to go through. You can find long Reddit threads where people will say, well, here's how you do it. You have to trick it by doing A, B, C, D, E, and then it'll work every time. Well, no, you shouldn't have to do A, B, C, D, E. You should just be able to say to this thing, no, don't play the live version, play the album version. And in some cases, you might even have different album versions, but that I understand might get into the actual music catalog. For example, if you wanted the old version of Pearl Jam's 10 album before they did the remixing on it to make it more authentic, which I think actually sounds worse. If you want the more processed version, which apparently the band thinks is terrible or something, you can't make that happen at all, but I understand why, because that's a lot trickier to figure out if the labeling isn't done properly on the back end, or if two different tracks of different albums of the same name that are only distinguished by year and remixing are present. I can let that go. But it's pretty simple to know the difference between an album version, a radio version, and a live version. And that's assuming there's only 3 versions of a song. And it can't get it right without you having to jump through a bunch of labyrinthine hoops. Yeah, I think that's correct. For having to do a lot of work. So that's going to be my single test on whether any of this is worth any of it. If it can't distinguish between a live version of a track, and I've got a couple in mind already that I know I can test it with, if it can't even do that, then what good is it? I don't want to, everything else, that's all just stuff that people want to pay for, they can. But if this thing can't figure out how not to play a live track, then it might as well just be garbage. Later.